All right, guys, welcome back to the Reminder Remedy. We are here yet again live on the YouTube page. But of course, we're showing love to our podcast listeners as well. I am super excited about today's interview, and I know I probably start all of my interviews like that. But I just told Kristin, who is our guest for today, that in preparation for our conversation, I was listening to an audiobook, and I won't totally ruin or just spoil what we're going to learn. But can I just tell y'all that in that 30 minutes of me just listening to some of the information that you all are about to get today, I feel like I need to sit down and rethink life and how I've done it. And I'm going to share with Kristin what I mean by that later. But first of all, welcome to the show, Kristin. How are you?
I'm great. I'm super excited to be with you and just chat and share space about this because I love that you are so forward thinking and you're like, hey, y'all, you need to know about this because we all do. So I'm honored to be here and excited to just share and talk.
Yeah. So just as a quick background, Kristin is one of my Neos. Shout out to Beta Alpha. Oop. And I had been looking into breath work after getting my positive psychology practitioner certification because we had a class one night where our facilitator just took us through some breathing exercises, and she introduced us to some concepts around just how breath work alone could be healing, right? Outside of the typical things you hear about wellness around nutrition and exercise and, meditation, just breathing correctly as a source of healing was a new concept. Like, I feel like I didn't even really understand what she meant, even when she was teaching it. So it wasn't until today in preparation for this conversation that my eyes were open. So when I saw you post that you had officially launched your business, and become truly all in this space, I was like, I messaged you that day.
Yeah.
Like, you got to get on the show. So tell us how you started on your breathwork journey.
Absolutely. So Authentic Witness, which is my business, didn't start overnight, right? Like as most things, it was a journey. I went to a training for this company that I worked for at the time, right? And we were talking about all of these wellness strategies, and they send you to these like self-care sessions. So there was one that was like breathing, and I was like, I know how to breathe, so I don't really know what this is going to teach me. So I kind of went in closed-minded, but I sat on that floor for 7 minutes and I breathed, and I was like, my life will never be the same. And I have to come back to that. Like, I knew at some point in my life I was going to come back to that. And as COVID and the pandemic kicked up, I was watching so many of my friends try to manage their anxiety, panic attacks that they were having daily, on top of the racial stress and trauma that, we were facing as a country. And then I also work with survivors of human trafficking. And so they share their narratives for systems reform and change. And I wanted something that could help bring them back to a place of center after just being so emotionally honest about their experience. And so breathwork seemed like the thing. And I said, this might be the time to look at that. And I found a teacher and a program, and I deep appreciation to my teacher, David Elliott, out in California. I will always give him gratitude because he took a chance.
Thank you, David Elliott.
He took a chance on me. And so we're here, and we're journeying with people on how to heal their bodies and to listen to their bodies and to live embodied. And it's beautiful. It's great. I love it.
I feel like even your energy just like across the screen is just so, you've always kind of had that energy. So this is probably just an iteration of what has always been. But I always find it interesting when I have wellness people or, you know, these healing gifts that you all have come to the podcast because the aura is just so like, I put on like my Lululemon because I'm like, I need to be able to breathe. Like,
Yeah,
I need to let this belly hang so I can maybe expand. So I just appreciate just like even in this moment, kind of the energy that you're bringing to the space. So, okay, let's get into the deets, right? Because I'm always like introducing new concepts to my audience.
Okay.
And, you know, I think that by now, many of them just off GP are like, okay, this is something worth listening to if Alena's bringing it. But I want them to really get a full understanding of what we mean when we talk about using your breath to heal, what we mean when we talk about breath work. So kind of give us like a definitive understanding of what the heck we're talking about today.
So I'll do like the sciencey side to satisfy that group of people, and then I'll do more the spiritual side to satisfy that group.
Okay, I love it.
Breath work is any type of breathing exercise or techniques. So there's so many different types out there. There are lots of varieties. But what it aims to do is help your what's called your parasympathetic nervous system. So our bodies are really cool, right? And so we have two nervous systems that are underneath our autonomic nervous system. One is called the parasympathetic, one is the sympathetic. So not to get too sciencey, but your sympathetic nervous system is your fight, flight, or freeze. That's how your body responds to stress, right? So during COVID, our sympathetic nervous systems were overwhelmed. It was like, my kids are yelling, I have to do my work, I have to be on the computer, like it's always loud. There's never a moment of peace. My body is always overwhelmed, right? It's like getting all of these messages all the time. So our sympathetic nervous systems were getting fried on the regular. And so what the parasympathetic...
On top of the fact that they were already probably severely fried just based on the level of burnout and stress that we deal with in general.
On a Tuesday.
So that was just a breaking point.
Right, because we're already getting like text messages, phone calls, emails, and like we have all of this information coming at us 24/7. And so our nervous system is like, oh, this is a lot, right? And so our parasympathetic nervous system is the part of our nervous system that helps us with relaxation. So the way I try to explain this to people is when you are happy, your face naturally smiles, right? The same thing happens when you're calm. Your breath slows down and it deepens. And so the goal of breath work is really to help and stimulate what's called the vagus nerve, which is a part of your parasympathetic nervous system. And it controls your body's internal organs. And so what it does is it puts them at a state of calm and relaxation, and it pervades your body and makes you feel like, okay, sympathetic nervous system, we're not going to die today. Parasympathetic nervous system, thank you for taking care of me. So it's this delicate balance. And oftentimes we live in a world where it's completely out of whack. So that's kind of the sciencey side. More of the spiritual side is that we have lots of energy points in our body. Some people call these chakras, right? We have seven chakras, and each of them have a different responsibility. And so what happens in our daily lives is that our bodies get overwhelmed. And so what we do with the practice of breath work is we help people live embodied, because oftentimes it becomes so much easier to detach, right? And just do the to-do list. So I'll give you an example. How many times have you been driving home and you're like, how did I get here? Like I knew I was driving, but I forgot, like I wasn't in my body.
Yeah.
And so breath work helps for people to live more embodied. It's a practice that helps with that. Yeah.
I love that. So when we think about the benefits of it, right? So, you know, understanding now kind of, all right, this is how breath is impacting my nervous system. What does that look like in terms of healing and everyday things that are impacted by a fried nervous system, right? Because I think people hear, okay, my nervous system, but I don't know that for the people who are not in this space like us, it really translates into how over time that fried nervous system turns into degenerative diseases and turns into anxiety and depression and eczema and asthma. So like, what are some of
COPD
the things, would you say?
and COPD. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Let's not even get started on everything, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that people should be anticipating on the other side of starting to learn how to use this
So
modality?
what, yeah. So what I tell people all the time is like, oh, I had a friend just call me and she is like, Kristin, what do you mean breathe? Like I breathe all the time, you know?
Mhm.
And I liken it to the ocean. So typically, especially as Americans, because we haven't been taught, Indigenous Americans have. So Native people are very aware of breath work. This is not anything new. But as Americans, we are typically not taught about this. This is an Indigenous practice, typically, that has been passed down for generations and centuries. And so what we find is that if we are not breathing, right, if we're not exchanging with the earth and the universe around us, our breath gets stuck in our bodies. So I want you to think about when you get really upset in a meeting, right? You're in a meeting, your boss has just like ticked you off, like you're done. One of the main things that you probably stop doing is breathing, like the way even that you breathe, like you, like it gets
Mhm.
stuck. So you're like,
Mhm.
right? And all of this tenses and your body feels all of that. And what typically happens is we're like, you know what? I'm not going to let that upset me. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get a glass of wine and I'm just going to forget about it. Well, all of that tension that you had when you did
Mhm.
is still living in your body, right? And so what we do a lot of times in our culture is that we use therapy, which is beautiful. Talk therapy is amazing and we need it. But that handles our brains. That doesn't take that tension and that stress out of our bodies. And so what happens is over time, our bodies break down. And what I tell people is we talk all the time about how our emotions affect our body, right? Like, oh, I feel really upset, like that's caught in my body. But our body can also affect our emotions. So
Mhm.
if you're feeling angry, right? How can you use your body? How can you use your breath to help
Mhm.
yourself out of that space? Your body
Mhm.
can move you out of that emotional space if you allow it. Um,
Mhm.
so it's really this recognition that like your brain doesn't run it all. And that is not
Mhm.
how we've been programmed. We've been programmed,
Right.
our brains, our brains, our brains. And this is saying, hey, your body, your
Yeah.
body matters
Drop
just
down into that physical
as much.
body scan of like, what is the body saying to me
Mhm.
right now? And that's honestly how I've even started to determine like my diet day by day. It's like coming out of my mind and like dropping down into my body. Like, what is my body telling me that it needs? Right? Like,
Mhm.
is it more protein? Is it, something that's greener? Like, I can almost feel it when I like
Yes.
just really pay attention to like what she's saying. So, for those of you all who started off with us, and I mentioned that I had been prepping for this conversation, I read a book that was actually recommended by my teacher over at the Flourishing Center for Positive Psychology, and it's called Breathe. I'll actually drop it in now, but it's called Breathe: The New Science of a Lost Art, and it's by James Nestor. So James Nestor, I actually probably like in chapter 4 of this book. So definitely just sitting by the seat of my pants now. But one of the things that he talked about that I think was just like such a significant moment for me today. So let's just pin this as like, okay, this is a day that like everything changed, because
Yeah.
this is now like I won't be able to unsee it, as they say, right?
Mhm.
Was he talks about the quality of breath, between distinguishing between breathing through the nose and breathing through the mouth.
Mhm.
And this was one of the things that they talked to us about, and how breathing through the mouth is just not good. That it could actually be um, escalating anything that's already out of whack, that it could be deteriorating your health. And I am someone who has always breathed through my mouth. I don't know if it's always been sinuses, but definitely more now sinuses. But I can remember being like young and like just sitting like with my mouth open, and my mom would be like, close your mouth, like I don't know what it was, but like I always breathed through my mouth. And in this book, he basically brought up a few different points, but he talked about how breathing through your mouth leads to things like snoring and sleep apnea. And of course, I'm like, do I have sleep apnea? I went and looked it up. And I swear to God, like since I was pregnant with my last child, I would wake up out of my sleep and basically be unable to breathe, like be gasping for air. And it still happens. Like it happened like 2 days ago. I was like, I totally have sleep apnea. And they talked about, those who fall asleep with their mouth open, breathing through their mouth, it then causes all of these respiratory issues. Kristin, when I tell you that I have been literally dealing with sickness, like I get sick basically every 2 weeks, and I've never had this type of issue. And it's always like mucus and can't breathe. When I went to Vail, I damn near died, like with the low elevation. And, obviously with COVID, like everything has just been heightened. And so they talk about just like the strength of lungs from breathing through your nose. But then it got me thinking about, okay, not only have I basically been living all of this time breathing through my mouth, even just the car ride today with me being very mindful and just breathing through my nose, I felt like my head was a lot clearer. So something else that I've been dealing with is I have kind of like a smell phobia. I don't know. Like I don't like perfumes like that are really loud. Like I don't like candles, and I don't know. I just always hold my breath. Like that's just a thing. Like I hold my breath when I go wake my kids up in the morning. I don't know if they done peed in the bed. I just have this whole it's an interesting thing. So when COVID happened and we started wearing masks, I noticed that every time I would go like into the grocery store at the beginning of COVID, I would always get like dizzy and almost like have a panic attack. And I realized that when I had the mask on, not only was it constricting me, but I just wasn't breathing. Like I was genuinely breathing through my mouth under a mask. So I wasn't getting anything to my body. And so I just had this whole moment today where I was like, all of these ailments that I've been dealing with and I cannot figure out, and I've been trying everything for like a year and haven't really seen much of improvement. I honestly think it's because I've been breathing through my mouth. Last thing, and then we'll talk about it. My 2-year-old Creed was diagnosed with severe sinus infection or sinus or allergies, right? So they're basically like, oh, he's allergic to grass, air, dust, right? He also has this like tongue thrush. He has like darker puffy eyes. He's always like rubbing his nose. And I noticed today as we're driving, I'm like, my baby breathes through his mouth. So I'm like, wow, this is so crazy, because in his book, he was talking about, patients who basically come in, didn't have access to like the sinus cavity area, right? Because either was too small or blocked, and like the structure of their face was getting narrow. Their skin was getting like puffier, which I feel like I've seen in my own son. And that the dental work is what shows things the fastest, right? So they had this orthodontist talking about how like people who don't breathe through their nose tend to have crooked teeth. And all of this stuff, right? And so again, out of all of my children, Creed's teeth are like the tightest. So I'm trying to think, I'm like, this is some crazy shit.
It's
like,
real shit. It's
wrong the whole time. And then last epiphany, and I'm going to get back to how you feel about all of this. They were talking about how, like you mentioned, there's these different breathing techniques, right? So he was saying how indigenous people, to your point, have always done breath work. Like his
Mm-hmm.
one friend was saying that he remembers being in school and they would get like nicks on their back
Yep.
if the teacher saw that they were breathing through their mouth. Like
Mm-hmm.
breathe through your nose, because your nose is what nose breathing is what increases cognition. So that was one thing. The other thing that they said was that basically if you breathe in the left side, that it basically affects the right side of your brain. If you breathe in your right nostril, it affects the left side. So one actually helps you digest food better, and one helps you to be calm, and like you can do breathing techniques where you hold one side.
Yep.
Girl, talk
Yeah.
to me, Kristin. Talk
Yeah.
to me. Help
Yeah.
me come back home and tell me that it's gonna be all right. Because I'm just feeling like I'm gonna die any day. I've been breathing through my mouth.
You'll be all right, Fred. So I will say I grew up as a child who had asthma as a kid, right? So I was always afraid to breathe. Like the concept of breathing through my nose was bizarre to me, because it was like, how am I going to get enough air if I breathe through my nose? Like I have to inhale this way, right? And so one I have learned in this process of breath work is when we first learn to breathe, one of the things that we need to be taught is if you can have a conversation with someone with your mouth closed, like they're talking, and when they're talking, your mouth is closed, you're breathing through your nose. But oftentimes we sit like this, mouth just slightly agape, trying to get air, right? And so we were taught, and your smell phobia is a thing for me as well, because I get chronic migraines, or I used to until I started doing breath work, which is a whole nother thing. But we are taught, like, don't take deep breaths in through your nose, because what happens? Your chest fills up, and that's not good, right? It is good. It's good for our bodies, because what that does is it allows us to get a full breath. So I'll give you just a quick example of this. Okay. So you're sitting there now. What I want you to do is kind of purse your lips just a little bit, like just a little open mouth, and then take a breath. How far do you get? Exhale.
Short.
Now do the same thing. Close your mouth. Breathe in through your nose. Now breathe that out. So two things just happened. First thing, you took more air in through your body and filled up your lungs. The second thing that happened automatically, Alena, without you even recognizing it, was that your shoulders dropped and your body started to relax. And so, yeah. Right? It's good stuff. And so what we
like, I feel like I'm like, and he talked about this, like he was like the first time he just felt like he was on a cloud. And I don't know that okay, let me stop. Go ahead.
No, you're great. And so that's just like the tip of the iceberg. That's the part of breathing that is just like your upper respiratory, right? Wait until you start getting into breathing from your belly and getting breath there, and then carrying that breath from your belly to your lungs and then out of your mouth. Like you're talking about a full circle moment. The level of relaxation that comes over your body and the ability for your body to truly feel into itself. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, when was the last time you felt your body? What do you mean? Like you walk around in it all day. Is the only time you feel it when you touch it like this? Can you not just feel your body when you're sitting or laying? No, because we haven't been taught how to do that. And so what the breath does is it allows the air to circulate and move through your body so that you can feel your body. And in doing that, you're better aware of, am I hungry or am I thirsty? Right? Am I tired or am I sleepy? We're not used to making those distinctions because we're not used to living in our bodies. And so when you just relax your whole entire being by just taking one breath, that's the difference between breathing in your mouth and through your nose. That's just that's the tip of the iceberg. Yeah.
Yeah. So for someone who breathes through their mouth
Mm-hmm.
that wants to transition to better breathing, what
Mm-hmm.
does that look like?
So I started off doing it in meetings. That's where I started. So I said, okay, I need to, because those are the spaces where I was typically getting the most activated and frustrated was at my job. So it's like, okay, I can't continue to breathe here because that's not going to get me anything. So what I said was, whenever my supervisor is speaking, I'm going to breathe through my nose. I'm going to close my mouth and I'm going to breathe through my nose. And I would sit in meetings and just practice it because it's not something that we're used to. And if you practice it for short bursts during the day, over time, you can build that skill. And it's also really beneficial to teach your children because they then learn how to breathe the right way. They don't grow up with all of the respiratory issues that we have and their breath being stuck in their body and all of this. Like they just, so for me, it's about you start small and then you expand the time of breathing through your nose. And then over time, it becomes natural.
It's kind of sad when we think about how much culture was lost when they took us.
Yeah.
Because I mean, in this on this book, they were saying how even like indigenous people with the babies would, after nursing them, like gently close their mouth so that they would breathe through their nose. So they would train them to breathe through their nose versus their mouth, or like if they were sleeping, they started sleeping with their mouth open. I think that I just like had this whole moment because I have just been that person that sleeps with their mouth open, breathes through their mouth, and I have always dealt with severe eczema, which is kind of like what people have now, research has shown that it's the outward visibility of asthma. And I was recently listening to a podcast episode where this guy was talking about how um, his Zen practices healed him from like chronic eczema because he was finally able to like still his nervous system. And even in that conversation, I realized that, I mean, I have eczema to this day, but I had it really bad when I was younger. But even now, I've noticed that in high stress times, or if like I'm getting anxious, like my patches will start to itch
Yeah.
crazy.
Same.
And I never noticed that, like I never realized that, like, because you're so stressed that you don't realize that. I mean, you notice fidgeting, like when people are anxious, but I never noticed, like, oh my God, like these particular eczema spots are like going ham. So
Yeah.
that to me has now been like my sign to catch myself and breathe, which kind of a gift and a curse, I guess, because I'm just like, wow, like who knew that this thing that plagued me for so long would create this sense of awareness of like what's happening with my body. But then I instantly went to like, how am I going to teach my children this? Which I think is like a big thing for me now. It's like, now that I am becoming aware of all of these natural remedies and just ways of life that we just didn't learn, trying to learn them for myself, but then figure out how to do it with my children is like kind of where my mind naturally goes. So for my mamas and my parents listening, do you have any recommendations for introducing breath work for our little ones?
Absolutely. So my nephew is 6 and I love that kid. He's fantastic. And he really loves his Legos and he is an indoor kid. He likes to be inside, but he does like his soccer, but he's an indoor kid. And so what we did this weekend was I said, hey buddy, let's get your Legos and let's go outside on a blanket. And we did. So this did a few things. One, it brought him into the sun, which is like good for your body because your body feels the sun, it feels the warmth, you get all the vitamin D and all that stuff, right? But it also shows him there's another way to do this play that you're doing. And then when we were outside, it doesn't become this thing that's like, okay, we're going to breathe now, right? We're sitting there, we're playing with Legos, and he's like, what did he say? He was like, TT, I'm tired. And I said, okay, do you want to lay down? And he's like, yeah, can we lay down and play Legos? I'm like, sure. So we're literally, Alena, we're laying down on the ground and we have the Legos up in the air. And I'm watching his, right? Because he's, right? And I'm like, hey, bud, you want to see something cool? And he's like, yeah. I said, can you breathe in through your nose really deep? And he goes, and he overdoes it, right? Because that's what you do when you're 6. And he just starts like, it's just like, and I'm like, okay, that was a big one. I was like, okay, now do it and do it a little bit smaller. And he goes, and I said, now breathe it out your mouth. And he goes, and I said, okay, do it again. And I said, now this time when you breathe out, do it like a balloon and let all the air leave your body, right? So a lot of this is making it fun for them, helping them realize that like their lungs are not, it's helping them realize their lungs. Like your lungs can inflate and then they can also deflate like a balloon. You can push it all out. And guess what? There's more air, because one of the reasons that we breathe the way that we do, and I hate to say it like this, but it's the truth. It's this westernized belief that there's not enough. Like I can never let my air fully leave my body because I need it. I have to hold on to it, because if I don't, I might not have any more to get, right? Versus if we recognize that our breath and our prana is just a part of our being, it comes and it can go, then we can teach that to our children. And our children can begin to breathe and recognize the exchange of their breath with the earth. And it's going to be here. So you can breathe it all in, it all out. So I tell parents all the time, they're like, how do I get my kids to breathe? I'm like, watch their chest, look at their chest, how it's inflating. And then try to get them just to do it through their nose bit by bit. And then as they get older, they won't have as many challenges. They won't have to work as hard to access it as we do. But they're amazing.
Man, I'm definitely looking for it. I Googled a few things, so I'm also going to add that to my woo-woo mom list of things to do with my kids. That Prince going to be like,
really, Mom? You're doing this?
I came home like, I got to tell you. Okay, so I would love for everyone to just get a taste of like what the heck you're talking about. Okay. So can we do a breathing experience for the people who are on the line and watching?
Sure. So we can do we'll do 3 different ones. All right. Okay. So the first one is called a box breath, and it's literally you're breathing out for the same amount of time that you're breathing in. But when you exhale, you want to fully release that breath. Okay. So this type of breathing, box breathing, is really good if you're in a situation where you don't want it to be super obvious that you're doing breath work. You know, it's like, but you also are feeling yourself become activated. You're feeling yourself become stressed. So we're going to do a box breath of 4. And the reason it's called a box breath is sometimes people literally draw a box as they're doing it, which also helps visually calm you. Because the other thing about breath work is it has a psychological factor to it where it diverts your attention from your thoughts and puts them on your breath. So we're going to do a box breath. So we're going to breathe in for 4 and out for 4. And then in for 4, and then out for 4. And we're going to do that 3 rounds of boxes. Okay. And so I just want you to just right now, 1 to 10 your body. So 1 is like, I'm super relaxed. 10 is like, I'm stressed out and I cannot take another second of life. Where are you right now before you even breathe?
Let's just go with a 6.
A 6. Okay. So we're going to do 3 box breaths really quick. All right. You ready?
Should I close my eyes?
You can if you'd like to. Yeah. And I'll count you down.
Okay.
Ready? So 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And out. 1, 2, 3, 4. In. 2, 3, 4. And out. 2, 3, 4. Go again through your nose. In. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. In. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2. Last time, let the body fully relax. In, 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, and fully release it. 2, 3, 4. Great job. Where are you now?
I feel relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like in true Alena form, like my brain was like focused on several pieces of it. So I feel like this reminds me of meditation when you're first starting and you're like, I don't know where to center myself. So like I was like, first of all, I realized like trying to breathe in was harder than breathing out for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
by the time I got to 4, I was like, oh, we're capped right here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like it was kind of stuck. Whereas breathing out, I felt like I was able to push out a little bit longer. So I was like trying to focus on like not suffocating here, but then I was like, oh wait, I forgot about my square. I couldn't remember I was on the square. So to me, it was a little bit of similar to how probably most people feel about meditation. Like this is supposed to feel like so relaxing, but my brain is like on 10 right now.
Absolutely.
Trying to like master it.
Absolutely. So that happens a lot with breath work. So let's do something a little different. I'm going to have you do the same practice, but I want you to just watch my finger. I'm not even going to count. When my finger gets here and moves over, you're just going to breathe. All right?
Okay.
You ready? Last time. Push it all the way up. Great job. Was that one better for you?
That was great. Like I feel like my ADHD was like, she's my person. Like having that to focus on, like even with the baby crying, it was like in a far distant, sound. It was kind of like that was like all that mattered. That was cool.
And so that's one of the things about breath work is there's so many different ways to do it. You have to find the one that works best for you. And I am like you. If there's anything in the background, I am like, phew. And so I need a very active meditation in order to stay focused, which is the third one I'll show you guys before we head out. But so the second one is it's the practice of breathing, holding, and then releasing. So what you do is you breathe in deeply for a count of, we'll do 5. We'll start at 5 because 5 might feel a little hard. So breathe into 5. We're going to hold here for 6. So the practice is 1, 2, 3. Let's do 4 because you said 4 was tricky. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold at your shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you're going to breathe it out your mouth. Okay.
So you're physically holding your shoulders?
You don't have to. You just hold your breath.
Hold the breath there.
Hold the breath, and then you're going to breathe it out. So we're going to breathe in for 4, hold for 5, out for 6. So I'll catch you. You ready? Okay. So breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go again. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Great job. So the difference between that one and the first one is that one really focuses on the breath that is out. So it focuses on pushing all of that energy that is you're holding here because you're holding it so tightly to push it out. And it helps with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt that. It felt like more of a build up. And so almost like the release was much more sensation. Like it felt really good going out.
Yeah. That's the one that I do when I'm angry. Like when I'm like livid, I'm like, and it's okay to like have a noise with it because your body is moving that energy out of your body and it's not staying stuck. Because that's what we don't want.
Man. Okay. Give us that last one, baby.
The last one is the one that I use in my active meditation sessions. So this one is requires you to lay down flat, but I'll show it to you up vertically. So it's a 3-part breath. So you breathe. I always tell people to put one hand on their belly and one hand on their chest just to start. So you breathe. You do breathe through your mouth for this meditation because it is really intense. So you're going to breathe to the point that your hand that's on your belly comes like inflates a little bit. So inflate your belly and then out. So you're using your lungs to inflate your belly. Ready? Go. Can you do that? Okay.
I'm muted because my baby's crying.
Oh, yeah. You got it? So,
shit.
Yeah. So if you're inflating your belly with your breath from your chest, it can feel a little tense. It's like, ooh. And then you take that breath and then you do another one in your chest. So it's belly, chest, out your mouth. So it becomes So this feels really bizarre when you're upright, but what happens when you're laying down is this like really interesting energetic circle starts to happen between the bottom, what's known as your root chakra, and then your crown chakra, and they start talking to each other because this is the first time you're moving your breath all the way through your body.
Well, I'm about to lay down.
Okay. Listen, we can get into it.
I don't even got no bra on, but listen, we about to get to it.
Let's do it.
I'm going to turn the studio around.
Okay, I'm here for it. So you're going to lay flat on the ground. And I'm going to play a little bit of music just to kind of help facilitate the space for you. Hold on one second for me. I'm going to pull up got a podcast for breathing. And all right, so go ahead and put one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest, and you'll probably be able to move them, but can you hear the music? Yeah. Okay. So belly, chest, out. Again, belly, chest, out. Keep with that rhythm. And just keep going with that. There's no wrong way. Just do what your body feels it needs.
I am not the things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the
Beautiful job. This is normally when your brain tries to kick in. Ignore it. Push it to the back. Stay in your body. Stay with your breath. Belly, chest, and then out. Beautiful job. Just focus on your breath
mistakes that I have made,
and how your
or
body's
any
feeling.
other things that cause me pain. I am not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am light. I am light.
Doing great.
I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light.
And now slowly just bring your breathing back to regular, just slowing it down.
I am not the skin on the outside. I am not my age. I am not my race. My soul inside is.
And just put both of your hands over your heart really quickly and give yourself some gratitude for showing up today and trying something new. Just feel your life force, feel the breath in your body, and recognize the beauty of your very existence on this planet.
I am divinity defined. I am the God on the inside. I am a star, a piece of it all.
And just acknowledge that you are light.
Am light.
Beautiful work, friend.
Yes, come on. Got me a little bro session. That was great. That was so good. I can definitely, it reminds me of, I mean, I guess like anything where, you know, the first time you do it, there are many things that you're trying to like do at once, right? Like I feel like I can't even talk anymore. Like I want to talk like you. Like hello guys. Welcome to the Reminder Remedy, where we breathe. Like that's how I feel. Like I feel like very. Like I don't even talk at the same speed anymore. Like I just feel like I'm on somebody's CBD or something.
Yes, exactly that. And the best part about that, I'm about to really like blow your mind. So you were active breathing for 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Seriously?
Like that 3-part breath. Yeah, because when you started, we started breathing and then we transitioned out of it. So you were active breathing for 1 minute and 20. So we do active breathing and breathwork sessions for 20 minutes.
Wow. Just in a minute. Oh my God. I can imagine how just like orgasmic that whole, like you just literally feel light.
Mm-hmm.
It's so crazy because are you on Jackie's line? No, you are 09.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So but you know Jackie Haywood.
Yeah. We had lunch a couple weeks ago.
Sherman. So she was on the podcast. Her episode is coming up soon. And I was telling her, so we talked about intimacy. Because you know she's an intimacy coach. And so I was telling her how I was watching some documentary on Netflix. I think it was like a Goop special. Are you a Goop fan?
I don't know.
You know Goop. So Goop is like Gwyneth Paltrow's podcast / anything she feel like doing because she got money. But the podcast is similar in scope in the sense of like she'll bring on like all of these like homeopathic like worldly people, right? Mm-hmm. And so anyways, it then took the podcast to Netflix. I'm getting sidetracked, but there was one, it was all about just like sensuality and intimacy. And one of the things that she talked about for increasing orgasms in women was learning how to breathe during sex, or during intercourse or whatever, you know, masturbation, whatever you do. And it was interesting because when she said it, I was like, I realized in that moment, like, a lot of times, especially at peak moments during intimacy, will clench up and hold my breath, you know? And so I was like, I remember that day, I was like, I'm about to just try to like breathe, like right when I get there. Oh my God. Like
So much better.
Game changer. And I feel like that was kind of in alignment with like what I experienced because like, I mean, it's my go-to now because my husband, like, we've always had like this really strong pheromone chemistry just in terms of scents. And again, I have this nosophobia. So for something about his scent has always just been like this for me. Like, I want you, very magnetic. And so just breathing him in during sex has been just brilliant for sex life. The other thing, though, which I thought about while I was doing this, because I guess my body kind of transcended in a minute, apparently, to a space, was that is a lot of what I had to channel when giving birth. So I did hypno babies, and hypno babies is all about like creating hypnotic anesthesia where you basically reprogram your brain to believe that pain is pleasure, essentially. But in hypno babies, one of the things that they talk about is that you use your breath and touch to create an intense kind of release of serotonin and all of these things that essentially, excuse me, we normally associate just like with sex, and the love drug and all of that kind of stuff. But this, my doula always says, whatever it took to make baby is going to bring baby here. And breathing in my spouse and even like gentle touch, which also would come from slow breathing, would make the pressure from my waves or my contractions lessen instantly. Right. And so, the hand on the breath and like expanding the belly is exactly what they teach you to do when your uterus is starting to contract. They're like, okay, fill your belly with oxygen, which is going to basically release like all of this moisture. And it's basically the same thing that's happening in sex. Like when I breathe, everything is getting moisturized, right? So it's kind of like the difference between like if you clench up when you have a contraction, the pain increases because it's almost like as if you're having dry sex, right? But then when you create all of these natural chemicals and this fluid, then it's like the baby just starts to drop. It's phenomenal. And so it's interesting to me that like it's almost like I learned this concept without really understanding what was happening, right? I kind of like learned it in this silo where I'm like, okay, breathing to have a baby, not realizing how much of that entire process could translate to other areas for me, beyond just that. So
it becomes breathing to be embodied. So what happens is, whether it's having a baby or it's during sex or it's after a rough meeting or it's just on a Tuesday, you're using the power within your breath and the power within yourself to live and exist in your whole body. I can feel my stomach expanding. I can feel your caress on my arm. I can inhale your scent. All of these things lead us to being more embodied and more in our bodies. And the more that we're able to do that, the more of a full life journey we live and we lead. And so it's breathing to be embodied. That's what you were learning. And that's what you're
Man, that's beautiful. So I'm curious, as a breath worker and someone who clearly has ingrain this into how you leave, or you're embodying it using your own words, what does a day in the life look like, right? Like I'm always interviewing people about like productivity and like, what is your hack? And it feels weird to say, oh, breath work for productivity, but breath work for productivity, right? Like being your best self, because the way that we define productivity in our program is really about being efficient enough that you can focus on what needs to be focused on so that you can then have time to focus on the things that are most important. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you've said, hey, my family, my spirituality, my health are most important, but they're taking up 10% of your day and then 90% of your day is work, there's a misalignment. So we look at productivity as creating that alignment. So, you know, within your life, and obviously I don't want to put you on the spot of like, oh, I got to have this perfect 90-10, but like, what does it look like to like walk in the world and be in the world with this type of information?
So I focus my energy on embodiment, and I keep using that word, but I really do. And breath is one of the ways that I live embodied, right? The other ways are I meal prep on Sundays so that I have my lunch during the week because my nutrition matters. And I like food. And so I want to be able to and enjoy food that's good and seasoned. And if I cook it, life's a lot better, right? I wake up in the morning, and before I move out of bed, because I know myself, once my feet hit the floor, I am decolonizing my psyche, as Amber McZeal says, and learning that my worth is not tied to work. My worth is tied to my being, but I'm still working through that. That's my journey. And so before I even get out of bed, I pray. And then I have a mat that's like, it's really a rug, but it's like not very far from my bed. And I don't allow myself to stand. I crawl over to my mat and I stretch. And I continue my prayers there. It's not more than 3 to 5 minutes, but it's my way of moving my body. And so for me, it is not making, as my friend Gary says, don't make a religion out of any practice. So it's not only breath work, right? It's also what I eat. It's also movement. So I wake up, I pray, I stretch, I worship. I get up, you know, get dressed, and I head off to work. And as I am off to work, I typically call my loved ones in the morning, and that can be a variety of people, but I make time for that. I get to work, I sit at my desk, and before I even open my computer, I make sure that my shoulders aren't here, because after I talk to my people, sometimes they stress me. So I say, and I relax into my chair. And that's a moment to be mindful. And I work, and then I have my lunch. And during my lunch, I typically don't eat in my office. It doesn't matter. I try to be, and if I am in my office eating, I try to be in front of a window so I'm looking at some trees. And I, at some point during the day, go on a walk around the building, and I might get a couple of my coworkers to come with me, because again, it's about movement. And then I come home. Sometimes I go swimming. Sometimes I read a book. Sometimes I do class. But whatever I do, I end the day making sure that I do what you did for at least 3.5 minutes. Like some days, I have a friend who lives out in California who's a breathwork practitioner. And we do a breathwork exchange every other week. And we just listen and talk. And I get an hour when I work with her. But at least once a day, it's 3.5 minutes. And I just return to my body, and I give myself gratitude for showing up. And I thank my body for making it through the day, because oftentimes we just take our bodies for granted. Okay, I'm awake. Okay, now I'm asleep. Your body could shut off at any point. So I give my body gratitude. I give my God gratitude, and I lay it down. You know, so.
I love that. So people that are listening or watching, hey YouTube, and they are wanting more, right? Does that look like I need to read a book? I need to go to a class? Like, I know for me to fully embody certain new practices, I have to understand like the history. I also need to some degree understand like anecdotal stories, right? Like I am the science person because society makes me say, oh, here's the science, but I'm more of a spiritual person. Like, I don't care. Like, just tell me how it changed your life. Okay, great. Sign me up. You know, like I love anecdotes of just like triumph over the world. Like that's just me. But do you feel like people have to, I mean, I already kind of know the answer in the sense of like, it's not one path, but like in terms of next steps, like what would you recommend for people?
I think that if people are interested in becoming more mindful, they have to do exactly what you shared earlier, which is figure out what that looks like for them, right? Like, and don't set yourself up for failure, because then you feel like a failure, right? So like, don't say, okay, every day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to pray and I'm going to get on my mat. Like that might not be your vibe.
Exactly.
What is your vibe, And so I've always said to myself, I wanted to be more mindful, but it wasn't until I had the tools to do it. So I recommend apps like Headspace is a good one. Hold on, I can tell you, I have Calm on my phone. There's one that is called Liberate. It's specifically for BIPOC folks. And all of these are like meditation apps. Like I started with Headspace. I would start 3 minutes a day with Headspace. And then they started charging me and I couldn't afford that. So I was like, I'm a chill.
Headspace.
Headspace, what y'all doing?
What y'all doing? But, there are lots of, Spotify has practices that you can do. You can just type in mindfulness on Spotify and there will be all sorts of things at your disposal. And you can try it as soon as you get home or when you first wake up or whenever your moment's going to be, but just try it. And don't tell yourself you have to do it every day. Just tell yourself, this is something I want to do. So I'm going to see what feels right. And over time, you'll find your groove, And also know that you don't have to be an expert on it. Like there are lots of people who are stumbling into the practice or have been on the journey forever. And, they're honored to share space and excited for anybody who wants to come on this journey. So I'm one of those people. So if you're like, I don't know what to do, email me, Kristin@authenticwitness.com. Like I might not have all the answers, but I want you to know that you're safe and that it's a journey and it's going to be great.
So how can people work with you? I know that they can check out your website, but like what type of programs do you offer?
So specifically around breath work, I offer what's called a healing session. I offer a partner session, which is 2 people. And then I also offer breathwork circles. I currently have a breathwork circle that I'm doing for free right now called Black Men Breathing. And it's for Black men who want to come breathe.
Right.
Pretty self-explanatory. And then I'm starting one in January for Black women breathing. And it's going to be a free breathwork circle that meets quarterly. So if you're interested in that, my website's there. So, but all you have to do is go there, click breath, and then all of the options are available to you. If you have some friends and you're like, I don't really want to do this for the first time by myself, but me and 2 of my own girls will do it. Come on. I welcome you with open arms. It's a journey and we're on it together. So
I love it. I love it. Yeah. For those of you all who are part of the Lifecrafting program, or if you are just a regular here at the Reminder Remedy, I'm definitely going to be reaching out to Kristin to get a breathwork circle going. So stay tuned for the date. We'll probably secure one after this interview because I'm just excited to just work on daily, but then also like that intentional connection between other people in a shared breathing circle space type of thing. I think it could be really, really powerful. So we're definitely gonna be hitting you up, us Lifecrafters. And I'm just so glad to see you doing this. You really seem to be in your zone and kind of in your lane rather. So I'm very, very proud of you for bringing this to our community. And I look forward to working with you. And I'm very grateful that you were able to kind of share space with us today on the episode.
I'm honored. I'm honored to be here, honored to share space. And so before we head out, my wish for you all is that you would live embodied and that you would love fully and give voice authentically. So thanks for being you. And I'm excited to see y'all soon, whenever that is.
Yes, I love it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. And as always, if you haven't already, make sure you click that red button and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Lifecrafting with Alena. If you are looking to work with a productivity and performance coach, you can find me at thereminderremedy.com, over at Instagram on at @thereminderremedy, or you can follow me on my personal page. I would love to help you start to craft your life so that you can honor the whole woman and show up as your best self. Of course, we're always focusing on creating more harmony between work and home because we shouldn't have to choose. So until
Yes.
next time, we'll see you. Thank you so much, Kristin.
No problem. Bye, y'all.